So let's talk about toxic masculinity. Now that's been used widely, that term lately, toxic masculinity. Is masculinity itself toxic, or are unhealed behaviors being mislabeled as masculine? And what are the healthy traits of a masculine the world needs to more of, which we can answer that a little bit later. But my question is to you, like, is masculinity itself toxic?
No.
All right.
I think it's more. I think it's more. I think it's more of the second. It's a lot of the unhealed that gets perceived as toxic masculinity. So, if you're, outbursts or being angry, they're obviously that's going to be toxic. Or you're controlling because you were in an environment growing up where that's sort of what you learn. I think it's a lot of that. It's the and you might not even, a lot of us may not even believe we need to heal from something that's going on that's considered toxic masculinity. But as you go, you have to decide if something continues to be a pattern and it's the same thing over and over again, and you're not willing to take a step back and say, hey, maybe it's something I'm doing, not the 100 people that I just pissed off. Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with healing. And those come out that way, I would think.
Yeah, and look, there are toxic people out there. Whether you're a man or a woman, you could show up with behaviors that are very toxic, that are painful, that hurt others, that really put out bad energy into the world. Masculinity at its core is not toxic, and to label toxic masculinity a thing, that's a misrepresentation of what masculinity is. But people can certainly be toxic. Absolutely.
Do you think they mistake misogyny for masculinity?
I think that's a great.
That's an interesting concept,
right? Like, because we know there's misogynists. I think there's one in power right now somewhere in the world, down south, without saying it. So do you think that people look at people who are misogynists, think they're toxic masculine? But we talked about the unbalanced part already. Like, that labels most people who probably have an unbalanced masculine power in them because they don't know. And I would really love for somebody somewhere to have a masculinity class. Teach boys what to be masculine, what it actually means.
Oh, it's out there, but it's more of the toxic.
Right. But yeah, but now
the things that we're seeing now is that the people that are hurt, the people that are like, it was like either absent father, domineering mother, relationship that went to shit. And, it's like, and at that stage, it's like, women bad. And that has been given a platform, many platforms all the way around, which is now going out to the kids and the others. And they're looking at this and like, this is the description of what masculinity is supposed to be. I'm supposed to party. I'm supposed to like make shit tons of money. I'm supposed to have, my woman's supposed to be at home taking care of everything and like, just be there on my needs. I can have the one that I heard this last week and it blew my mind. One-way misogyny. One-way
monogamy.
Monogamy.
Yes, man. You watch that documentary, Manosphere?
I watched it. I just was like, what the fuck are you saying? It was like, oh no, she's got to be monogamous. I don't. And I was like, and this is just being force-fed out to an entire generation that doesn't know, what it's like to be in a long, solid relationship. There's like really disturbing stats about like how many men under 30 have never been in a long-term committed relationship.
What about the men are in their 30s still virgins, never experienced actual
that too? Right.
Yeah. Like, listen, I think there's a pandemic out there when it comes to men. We're getting the raw end of the deal because I think with social media and what women perceive as attractive, like if you look at over 6 feet, makes more than $100,000 a year. It's got to be fit, right? And, and a whole list of things. That's like 0.02% of the population. So 90% of the women want 0.02% of the population for men. Well, how do you think the other 99.8% of the people feel? They feel they feel hopeless.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I'm going to say out there is like, learn to socialize. As a man, you got to learn to socialize. Be charismatic, right? And I think some of the toxicity comes because you resent the feminine because they don't give you the time of day. Because you, and I'm going to tell you this drives me crazy, and just saying, like, guys spend all day gaming. They don't go to the gym. They eat like shit. They never sleep. They live in their parents' basement. They have no ambition. They have nothing.
And they're watching porn all the time.
They're watching porn all the time. They're addicted to porn. They're addicted to drugs. They're smoking weed all day. Like, the worst thing I think they could have done is legalize weed. Like, all these actions and addictions that men have. Of course, you're not going to be masculine. Of course, you're not going to be attractive to the opposite sex.
Well, you're so distracted, you're so numbed out by all of these external factors and influences that it's not even there, that awareness that you're not being masculine, because you're so faded from it.
Right.
Yeah.
So then how do you begin to change that?
Got to put yourself out there. That's the big part of, like, and we have an entire society, like, even through the education system right now. The education system is predominantly, most men have been pushed out of it. I served on the teacher board for my daughter's school. One of the few teachers that were men, he ran the gym class, and he in one of our meetings said that he is under no circumstances ever going to be in a position where he is alone with a female student in the school, just because all it takes is one word and they're gone. This is spread through the system. Most of the teachers now are female. And we've got ADD kids at the school, that it's like, the boys are like, I just gotta do something. And they're being told, be quiet, sit, calm down. When what they really need to do is just get outside and run around to burn off the energy so they can go.
Let them get rid of the zoomies.
Yeah.
And that brings another point is, I think the education system is not designed for men and boys and learning.
That was where I was going.
Right. So, like, maybe they should go back to, like, having schools where there's a school for girls and a school for boys, where they can, make shit, break shit, go outside, be physically active.
Shot class. What happened to all those?
Just
right?
and I think those are important life skills. And I get the fact that you can pick up a phone and hit a nap and some guy comes to your door and fixes your toilet. I get that. But I think what happens when you take away all the things that men would have done at their home beforehand, you take away their purpose, you take away all the things they need to do. Like, women are able to be on their own. Like I said, I'm not knocking women. I love women. I 100% agree with empowerment of women. I believe in all that stuff. But what happens is men have to now relearn how to be men in a different type of society. Yeah. Which is women are equal to, because they're bringing home the bacon and they're cooking it and they're taking care of the kids and we're doing the same thing. And we need to teach boys the fact that you need to be good with your hands. You have to be useful. You have to be able to fight. Like, in school, when I was a kid, you get in a fight, who cares? You go outside, you slap each other around a little bit, somebody comes home with a bloody nose and nobody cares. Now you're suspended for 3 days, this, that, the other thing. But men need to fight. We need to beat the shit out of each other every once in a while. I'm not saying to a pulp, but we need to get into a fight every once in a while, because it teaches you that you can go out there and do that and you still be okay. That me and Chris can have a fist fight now and later on slap each other in the ass, which you can't do anymore in sports, supposedly, and go have a beer together and talk about the fight. Man, that right hook you gave me really hurt. Like, look at my eye. And he'd be like, look, you broke my tooth. Like, that's the way real men should be. We don't carry the hatred and thing. We just have that part of our aggression that if you keep kids in school locked up doing nothing, that tends to build up. You need to get to exercise. You need to get them to run around. Men in general need to, if you're sitting down, you can sit down for an hour, but you need to get outside. You got to burn energy. Yeah.
There's that balance in a household, right? Where the feminine is, to a certain extent, sometimes overprotective, right? Helicopter style parenting. And then the masculine will create a space where it's safe for kids to make the mistakes, to learn from those things that are happening, to allow them to kind of test the waters of life, right? And what I'm hearing in schools now is, and my daughters talk about this, is, there's a couple of male teachers, but it's predominantly women. The principal is a woman, and they're now making things, they're banning things like fully inflated balls, because if it hits you in the head, it hurts too much. So you're not allowed to have a basketball in the schoolyard because it's too hard. So you can show up with a volleyball, but it's got to be 3/4 inflated. and you can play with that because it's a lot softer. They're not allowed to bring umbrellas to school because somebody got poked with an umbrella one day.
You're kidding.
And when the weather is either too cold, too rainy, too windy, too all the reasons, they leave them indoors now. So of course the boys are sitting there going, "Holy smokes! Like all these rules, suppression, can't even go outside." What does that do to a boy who's growing up in those under those conditions?
And you have all that testosterone that you need to do something with,
Yeah.
right? Like, so my next question was here on this one. I just want to get, I didn't want to cut you off on that one, but I think we're
Yes.
getting, we're getting, I just want to let you guys, I don't condone violence. I don't think fist
Right.
fights
Of
are
course.
right, but like, I'm just saying the point that, you know,
We've all been in them.
we've
I'm
all been
pretty
in
sure.
a fight here and there, and we,
100%.
and you know what, you probably still talk about as memory of that.
Look, there's a difference between going up to somebody and sucker punching them in the mouth versus
Right.
versus being out with a buddy, having a disagreement and getting into a little bit of a brawl, you know,
Little tussle.
little tussle, blowing off some steam and then hugging them after.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it says, what are the healthy traits of masculinity the world needs more of?
Mhm.
So, of course, David, who's awesome. Another shout out
Thanks,
to you,
David.
but confident,
Absolutely.
purpose focused,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's got clarity,
Yeah.
someone who pursues goals, discipline,
100%.
presence through consciousness and self-awareness. Now that's a big one that's missing, I think.
Yeah.
You guys want to talk about that a little more?
Well, that was kind of what I said in the last one. It's like just being aware of, you know, like when we're talking about the toxics, is being aware of what's going on toxically with you and being able to say, okay, what's the flip to that? You know, it was like moving from power to force,
Right.
you know, or force to power, you know. So
You know, I think about the word consciousness, and when you were sharing those words around the masculine, what the real masculine shows up with, I don't know about you, but I could feel the energy shift in this you know, this environment right here, in comparison to the toxic masculinity words, which it was kind of like a dead vibe, a dead energy.
I think as we probably don't relate to them as much,
Right.
anymore, right? Because
Yeah.
where you become aware of where our shortfalls are,
Yeah.
right? And I think that awareness is so important that, you know, when you come home and you're having a bad day or whatever the case may be, that number one, you have a safe place to release, whether you learn how to rage like we did at Man on Fire, or if you like to have a boxing match or go to the gym or go for a run or something.
Yeah.
And getting to that, why am I feeling this way? And why am I so distraught? Be vulnerable enough to share that with people that you trust.
Mhm.
Does it have to necessarily be your wife? Maybe not. Maybe you want to share with a brother or somebody who's a good friend, because you don't want to put that much pressure on your family, because you want a safe place to go. You want your wife to give you a safe place to come home to.
And you mentioned the word living a life with purpose. And when we talk about these young men in life right now, it's challenging for them to know what their purpose is. If they're always playing video games, if they're always distracted, if they're always they don't have masculine leadership around them. And I know for myself, I didn't fully know what my purpose was for a long time. It took me to my early 40s to really figure that out, right?
Yeah.
So what that says to me is that this journey of showing up as the masculine, true masculinity, it's an ongoing journey. You're not born a man or a boy and you're the masculine,
Right.
right? It takes time and you continue to grow into it.
There has to be a willingness to want to learn.
Mhm.
Like that's an important piece to it. And even for the the younger generation, right? They have to be curious to want to know.
Mhm.
Okay, I want to, and that's part of discovering their purpose. If but they have to have curiosity. And I think that's an important piece to help sort of get them moving along.
And sometimes it takes something quite tragic in your life to turn that curiosity on,
Right.
Absolutely.
right? And that all of a sudden you're recognizing the level of consciousness that you've been at, and you're willing
Mhm.
to elevate it and increase that awareness.
Do we think that the young generation, they are curious about masculinity and femininity? Is that something that intrigues them? They wonder about, is it coming up for them in general terms? This is just sort of a question. I don't know.
You know, it's funny because like I try to have conversations with my daughters about certain things, and the thing is, they're always have to be. So I stopped arguing with them. I would just give them my perspective or lend them my perspective, and they can do whatever they want with it. But I find that the young generation has so much information at their hands, and of course, with algorithms, feed them the same thing over and over again. I think before, when you were curious of something, you had to do research. You had to go find books and encyclopedias, and there was a certain amount of information. Where now there's so much information, you don't know what's true, what's not true. And I think a lot of them are being brainwashed thinking that things are certain ways.
Yeah.
And instead of being open to seeing all perspectives, because the person who holds the most power is the person who has the most perspectives. And they're very set in their ways. I think that people are curious when things aren't going their way. So two things either happen, I find, in society. One, they give up completely. And then one thing that they even put is resilience as a masculine is be able to get through hard times.
Yeah.
And part of that resilience is going through tough times when you're young. And as parents, we make the big mistake.
Coddling. Yeah.
Doing everything for them. So when things happen and we don't give them boundaries and we don't tell them to fix their own issues and, listen, this is your problem. I'm proud of you. Go and deal with it.
Yeah.
No, I'll go talk to the teacher. No, you're not. You ain't let the kid figure it out with the kid. Like, that's why they're two kids. What do you need a teacher to get involved for? Like,
But there's also boundaries that you need to hold. I'll give you an example. I mean, my daughter, I'm very much of the spirit that, hey, work it out with your friends. Okay. If there's any challenges, you guys got to figure it out. Same with your sister. But there was a situation where there was a boy at school who was constantly putting his hands on her shoulders and her traps and squeezing when she was in the room. And she said, stop. And he didn't. And then a third time. And then she came to me. She said, Dad, this guy, he won't stop hurting.
you won't respect their boundaries.
Right. So I said, okay, where does he live? Where does he live? So she was in the car. I went straight to the house and I knocked on the door and I said, hey, I just want you to be aware of a situation that's occurring between your son and my daughter, and that's not acceptable. Right. So that was a boundary that I held because there was pain involved and it was crossing the line. Right. But if it's an argument and it's, of course you want them to figure out, but as the masculine, you also have to be aware of, okay, when do I step in?
That's
Next word after awareness, protective.
Protective.
Yeah. Helicopter parenting versus, letting them scrape, letting them fall. It's like pick yourself back up again.
Right.
And it's one of the things, and I'm seeing this with my granddaughter right now. This just happened a couple of days ago. And it's like, I can't remember something fell, bang. And she just turned around and was like, it's okay. You're fine. All is good. And she starts calming down. And then my daughter sits there and goes, oh, are you okay? And all of a sudden it's like, and it's just a learned behavior. And I think, and a part of, just the whole Maudie calling kind of thing, like that like you let your child take the bus alone, and I was like,
They don't drive.
not yet. Let's hope not. Anyways, not before 16.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so there's helicopter parents, right, that are always around, and then you have the parents that are, I'm gonna call them nets, right? They're the ones that catch them before they fall, and then those parents that are like, you picked him up, like you fell down, I pick you up, brush you off, move along,
Keep going.
right? Keep going, rather than saying, oh, I'm gonna catch you every time. Like I'm not gonna be there to save my kids every day of their life.
No.
Yeah.
Right. And there's protective, and then there's intrusive.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you don't ever want your kids to fail, I think you're being intrusive in their life. And I think our wants aren't what our kids want. They want their own. They want their own desires. They want their own wants. They want their own. So for me to reflect what I want on them, and you wonder why we mess up these kids, is we want we want them to have a life that we never had. So we dream about it, then we put it on them. Rather than saying, hey, you know what? Life is beautiful. You are not me. I am not you, but we're connected. I love you. And I just want whatever fulfills your life to happen for you.
And deep down, when you're wanting to give them the life that you never had, that is part of being the protector that is just hasn't been nurtured. It's not mature,
Right.
right? You know, I grew up, my parents were very young when they had me. They were 19 and 22. And by the time I was 17, my mom she was only 36, right? Like it was pretty wild how young she was, right? And I wanted to become a DJ after college or after high school. You know, my dad says. What school are you going to go to and what are you going to take? And I said, well, I'm not going to college. I'm going to be a DJ. And he says, no, that's stupid. You're not going to do that. You know, DJs don't make any fucking money.
Right.
And you're either going to go to school or you're going to get a really good job where you're going to make a good quality salary and get a pension. Right. And I took that on. Right. Yes, I was angry about it, but I did it and I went against my will. Right. Or my knowing, but I didn't, you know, so young, I didn't recognize it at the time that I just wanted to be an entrepreneur. Right. Deep down. I just didn't know how to describe it. I didn't know what my passion, my purpose was, but I knew something was living in there. But my dad was just trying to protect me. He was just trying to protect me the best he could, the best he knew, because he lived life a certain way and he struggled through the military and he recognized that, hey, you need to have a good job if you want to survive in today's world, right? And he wasn't wrong.
It's a cultural thing,
right?
Yeah.
No.
But it kind of, in funny ways, messed me up a little bit, right? Unintentionally.
Right.
Now I see it. And
Well, listen, I think that also at a young age, we don't have experience in our life to really make a real decision. Like you knew that was your calling, but like, you know what?
Yeah.
You could have still been a DJ, but you could have done it while you had a job and did it part-time.
which is what I did.
right.
I ended up doing that.
It didn't stop you from doing it, but I get that part. Like we understand they want to be slightly protective because especially these younger generation, like I started working when I was 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
I delivered papers at 12. At 13, I got my first job as a busboy, right? And I experienced a lot of different jobs that I knew, well, I want to fucking do that for the rest of my life,
Hell no.
right?
Yeah.
Where now you have to be 16 years old before you get your first job, but you're almost graduating high school. You have zero life experience and you expect to make a decision of your rest of your life without having any experience.
Mm-hmm.